Hey folks, this is Lucid, and welcome to the national overview for Early Age Caelum. This is one of my favorite nations. I say that about a lot of nations. I really like this nation. I want to like it even more. There was a change that was made to how flying worked, going from Dominions 4 to Dominions 5, and that's probably honestly the reason I haven't played it. And the change is that in a commander script, if you script attack, it does a walk attack, not a fly attack. It used to be it did a fly attack, and that used to mean you could drop your commanders into melee and then have them cast spells, which was pretty darn cool. Especially when you kind of see some of the things the nation can do. I think this might be the first flying nation I've ever done a national overview for. And with that, I think I have to talk about what makes flying nations utterly goddamn cancer. And that is that they have strategic mobility that is out of control. And if you take advantage of that, you can force your opponents into making some very, very hard decisions. With that, let's talk about Caelum. Caelum is a nation of flyers. They have two normal move guys, the Temple Guard and the Mammoth. They kind of got a shadow nerf coming from Dominions 4 to 5. Part of that, a small part of that, was that thing I mentioned with the commanders, where scripting attack does not do walk attack, it does fly attack. The real part of the nerf coming from 4 to 5 is it used to be when you flew, you would get first strike. Because you would it was turn-based combat basically, and if you flew, you'd fly and attack, and then the enemy would respond. Now that's not really the case. So that does hurt. It just makes all your flying troops a little bit worse in general. But it's not debilitating. Unlike the bats, Zabalba, which got hit by that nerf as well, Caelum units, they have spears so they can repel on it every once in a while. They have decent defense stats. They usually have some kind of armor. They're not going to absolutely melt in combat the same way bats do a lot of time. So because of that, they're less affected by that particular kind of shadow nerf than Zabalba. And they can still expand pretty well and all of that. While we're at the national screen, there's a few other kind of interesting things. One is your priests have a chance to summon a guardian spirit, and a lot of times that guardian spirit will be astral. And they'll a lot of times put like body ethereal and stuff on you. It's based on your holy level. So if you're holy 2, like your Eagle Kings, it happens pretty regularly, not all the time. I probably should have looked up the numbers. If you're only holy 1, who do we have who's a holy 1? I can't even remember. We might not have any. That would be funny. I didn't even know that. Yeah, but if you're holy 1, it happens significantly less frequently. But yeah, the paths we get on the nation, we get a ton of air. Most of the air is through our Eagle Kings, who are all Air 4, and Air 4 is super random. I mean, super rare in the game. There's not many Air 4 mages, especially guaranteed Air 4. There's some mages which can roll Air 4, but this one, every single time you get him, he's an Air 4. And that lends itself to some pretty awesome things. Some very awesome things, I would say. Like in some ways, these are all kind of like Queen Air Elementals. Is how you can. I mean, they don't have quite as much HP and whatever, but I mean, these are so goddamn. This is one of my favorite mages in the game. Somebody was arguing with me, telling me that they're not really good. You're like paying way too much money for them. They're like 400 gold for a 19 HP dude. Oh no. Oh no, my little grasshopper. These guys punch well above their weight at 400 gold. They are so goddamn good. I guess we'll start with these. In my opinion, the way I feel about this nation, these guys in some ways are like the centerpiece of the nation. And some of that came from way back when I read, I think it was a Ball's Guide, and it was for Conceptual Balance mod back in Dominions 3. And in CBM, which is what we called it, you could get Yazads, which are summon you still get, but you got them at like Conjuration 1 or 0 or something. And they had awe, and they were basically like an Eagle King without magic. And you could put them on Guard Commander, and you could use Eagle Kings to expand, and it was super fun. But anyway, when you start doing that, you start learning all the little nifty ways that Eagle Kings can be used, and there's a lot of them. So let's talk about some of them. Okay, so if we look at an Eagle King, they've got Awe, which is really nice. They've got Shock Resistant, which is pretty good. 17, very nice. Cold Resistant 5. Magic Being, which is generally a bad tag in vanilla. And Storm Immunity in Flying. This is super duper good. So let's talk, and then the paths, they're air, water, earth, and they have a small chance at a random. Fire being one of the paths that they don't already have. But you have other kind of fire mages, which we can talk about later. But yeah, so they are super duper nice. What do these paths do? Well, they actually make pretty phenomenal thugs. Let's talk first about the thugging. The way I like to thug with these guys is they already have pretty high shock resistance. If you want to, you can add a little bit more shock resistance gear. Either like getting this out, you probably, for what we're this is basically a shockwave thug. I'm going to pause it. We'll pull one up. Okay. I have switched. I've got a test game pulled up here. And I have the AI on, so put up all sorts of stupid shit for globals. But yeah, so we've got a kit. This is a basic kit. You can do this, by the way, with much lower gear construction. This is construction 6 gear, and all these are 5 gem items except for the Vine Shield. And you can do this without a Vine Shield. But like, we'll go into this because this would traditionally be kind of hard. What we're going to do here is we're going to do Summon Earth Power. A lot of times when you're using your Eagle Kings in hard engagements, you want to do Earth Power. You don't have to, but it helps. Summon Earth Power. For the Bless I took for this nation too, we've got Reinvigoration and Blood Surge. So it's actually kind of cool. Blood Surge won't trigger on the Undead, which we're about to find out. Iron Skin. We're going to do Mist Form, which should protect us. And you could do other things. There's so many buffs we have access to. We have Quicken Self, we have Liquid Body, we have Breath of Winter, we have Flying Shield, which is really good. But that's not our thing. We're good. These are all the buffs we're going to need. And then after this, we're just going to drop Shockwave. And then advance and cast spells. And, oh, we need to bless ourselves, though. I think we'll actually do that here. Okay. And let's see how this works. The one thing, and before we get too much into like talking about all the units and stuff, I do want to talk more about the strategic mobility, because a lot of people are like, oh yeah, birds can fly. Honestly, you're not, no matter what I say in this video, there's no way you're going to appreciate how horrible and painful it can be to fight a good player playing flyers, unless you've done it yourself. That's honestly the only way. It's honestly the only way. Alright, so they killed the Yazad. The one thing that's nice about the Vine Shield is it makes it more likely he casts spells when he's off script. Okay, he hasn't blessed himself yet. Alright, there he goes. And now the Shockwave should come out. I'm not sure why he's not casting. There he goes. Shockwave, Shockwave. The nice thing about this is it's kind of killy, and especially if you do them in pairs or you do them maybe with some kind of chaff. Shockwave thugging with Eagle Kings is pretty intense, and they haven't even gotten close to hurting him. And to show you how confident I feel in this, we'll just send him into this throne, which I have no idea what's in here. Could have fire elementals, all sorts of shit. Fire elementals probably would kill him, actually. Could have air elementals. We'll see how we do. What kind of mage do we have? Okay, I mean, this is going to be a stop. Nothing here. Now, he finished his buff script this time. Last time he didn't, because he got surrounded by Long Dead Cav, which are really fast. But you can see he's dropping shit. And look at his reinvigoration here with this build. 14 reinvigoration with Blood Surge active, 21 defense, 21 attack skill, 31 protection, 36 HP. Tell me how this guy with a bunch of 5 gem gear is not worth $400. I mean, he'll literally drop Thunderstrike all day long. The other thing he can do that's really, 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 really good, especially with like Vine Shield in this particular kind of setup, is Mirror Image. Mirror Image is really good, and in a hard battle, I would definitely do that. And then if you do like a fair number of these guys in an important fight, you can have them do Storm Power, which is going to help. It's going to cut the fatigue down of every single spell they cast. It's going to make Mirror Image better. They're going to have like 10 images that you have to get through. And then if you're really worried about that, you can do a Twist Fate thing. Like maybe swap this out for Twist Fate. And then these guys are so hard to kill with that big of a Mirror Image and with Twist Fate. It's hard. You can also swap this out because we're not hardly ever getting hit. So the armor doesn't do that much. You can swap this out for Rainbow Armor, get a bit more reinvigoration, and then you have that Twist Fate amulet here. It can be real good. So that's, Eagle Kings. Barbs, do they care about barbs? Here's the short answer. They don't care about barbs. They literally give no shits. All right, they're very strong. These guys can come online very early when... they can come on really, really early with pretty low gear. Shockwave is super low research. It's, I think it's like evocation 2 or 3 or something. It is really low. These guys are super duper good. That said, that is not the only thing you can use them for. You can use them to summon air elementals. You can have them do living clouds later to summon lots of air elementals. Obviously, they can do fog warriors. You know how I mentioned that thing with mirror image? There's a thing you can do with Queen of Air Elementals, they have more HP. It's a little bit better of a chassis, but you put a Storm Staff on them, so they're going to get Storm at the beginning of combat. Then they can then do Storm Power, which will get them up to Air 5. Potentially you can put an Air Booster on them, get them up even higher. But like, assuming you just do that, you go through the buff script and you put up Wrathful Skies with Storm up, and they are going to be gnarly, absolutely sick. You can do that without the Storm Staff and stack other gear. You might have more issues with fatigue. And so that's something to keep an eye on. We're stacking like reinvigoration in this build, so you would kind of get out of your fatigue situation kind of quickly, but you kind of also don't want to get walloped and killed. So, and having one more, mirror image, one more air path for mirror image doesn't hurt either. But yeah, I mean, there's so many ways. So that's like, you can use these guys for Wrathful Skies, traps. You can use them even Wrathful Skies offensive, where you teleport in. They can all magic phase with Cloud Trapeze. This Earth Path is so important for making them a pretty good thug. You can easily, like you saw, we were Wrathful. The thing is, when you do Shockwave thugging, you end up hitting yourself a lot. And that's why we had to get shock resistance on us, because we have it built into the chassis. No, we can't do Summon Earth Power here. He ran out of gems. Still didn't give a fuck. Okay, he's about to do Shockwave now. But there's a good chance that hits him. And he needs to have well over 15 shock resistance. Like, at least 20, I would say, to be a Shockwave thug. And 20 is a little low, because sometimes you'll zap the shit out of yourself. Bad roll, you get stunned. They knock you on the head, you're dead. Heroic Toughness. So, anyway, that's the Eagle King. You can tell I like the Eagle King. They are extremely versatile. There's a ton of stuff they can do. There's probably some other things I'm not even thinking about, like Freezing Mists, or whether they could do. You would have other mages that could do that. Maybe even Rain of Stones or something. You can stick Earth Boots on these guys, and then you don't have to worry about putting gems on them to do Summon Earth Power. It's also reasonably useful. One of the problems Caelum struggles with, I probably should have mentioned this at the beginning, but one of the problems Caelum struggles with is things that don't die to air elementals and don't die to Spirehorn warriors. Those things in general are like, God damn it, because you literally can't kill them. Caelum is not like a very killy nation. If these guys, these little wimpy little spears, aren't going to kill something. there are ways around this, right? But like, okay, first of all, what am I talking about? What are the things that wouldn't die to this? Anything that's like a Melkwort, right? You get a Melkwort to be size 6 with enlarge. Anything that's size 6 that has shock resistance and a bit of regen and decent protection is going to give you a very, 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 very hard time. Potentially. There are always ways to deal with things, but that's one of the things that gives you a ton of trouble. Monoliths, oh my god. Trying to kill an enemy monolith can be really, really painful. Especially if you're not expecting it and just drops on your army and you're a bunch of birds. Those are things that birds struggle with. That being said, one of the ways around some of that is Eagle Kings getting Earth Boots and then maybe a Bloodstone. And with that, you're able to do, you'll be Earth 3, and then you can do Earth Power, get you up to 4. That's, by the way, now you're now enough to do Army of Gold and stuff, but you can also do Weapons of Sharpness with the gem or 2. And Weapons of Sharpness plus Strength of Giants can be the difference between winning and losing fights. Like getting horribly cheesed and not. So it can be a really big deal. So anyway, Earth is an extremely important path for this nation. It's not their strong path, it's not their strength, but it's something that you need. And so anyway, that's that. Okay, next mages. Let's go back to the screen we were at. Okay, so we talked about the Eagle King. I probably have still left out stuff about the Eagle King. All right, like he's a great leader. You want your sister to marry him. You know, this is a good unit. Next up, we have this guy who's a leader. We're not going to talk about the leaders, guys. One thing I've learned, hey, if any of you guys are out there making your own YouTube videos, don't feel obligated that you have to talk about all the leaders. Like if they're just a plain, okay, we have a stealthy leader. Great. I don't actually think we have any stealthy. Oh, we do. Our sacreds are stealthy. Holy shit. How did I not know this? And they hit kind of hard too. Maybe there's a role for this. Having a stealthy squad or 2 of birds, I could get behind that. I don't know what you would do for the bless. I think a bless is still kind of wasted on these guys. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, stealthy's nice. It might be good to have a squad or 2 as a novelty, but I'm still not... I am not convinced, but that's an option you have. Anyway, we have a stealthy sacred commander who can pillage. Actually, these guys might... Okay, we have to try this, guys, for science. For goddamn science. 1 second. It's these guys, right? All right, so let's see what happens. I'm assuming... So, like, this province here, I can do raid. Wait, no. What about this one? Can I do raid? Oh my god, that's horrifying. Oh. Okay, that is fucking evil. That is goddamn evil. All right, let me explain the significance of this. The significance of this is as follows. These guys are stealthy pillagers. And because they're flying, they can pillage at a distance. Now, why does that matter? Why does that matter? It matters because if an enemy does not have anybody here, right? Like if there's nothing in that province, and you move there to attack it, which would give you gold, it would be a good thing to do. You move there to attack it, or if there's an enemy army present, and they're patrolling and they catch you, you're fucked. But I think if you raid... God, we have to actually test this. 1 second. Okay, so I've got a test game. Okay, so we're Caelum. We could attack here, right? If I attack here, there's 20 Vanheim PD. If I attack and Vanheim moves his army over here like this, he would intercept me, right? And it would be annoying for me, right? But if I go to raid, I probably won't attack him, I don't think. I think we'll just get a raid command. And I think there's a chance, and this is what I don't know, if we trigger against the PD, I don't know if the moving in army will catch. Yeah, see, we were unable to catch him. Ooh, this is dirty. God, that is so dirty. All right, so that is actually a good tool. That is actually a good tool. Now, you don't want to be raiding people, but by raiding, I mean using this raid command. You don't want to be raiding people that you're looking to eat. Because people you want to eat, you're going to go you want them to have population in their lands because it's going to be yours. But if somebody's trying to kill you and you want them to screw off, this can be extremely effective. You can unlock, lock someone's cap down with unrest. Like, look how much unrest this has. This is just 140 squad. 60 unrest in a turn. That's a big deal. I mean, we can do that on top of their capital, and it shouldn't trigger a fight. And if we do, and like, what are they gonna have to do? Patrol their cap every single turn? Like so. Yeah. I mean, that's painful. Yeah, that's super, super goddamn painful. That is a very good tool to get yourself out of a bad war. The thing is, with other raiders, like why it's so important they're flying, with normal raiders, you know kind of where they're going to be. Like, you can see them in the province, they're going to go somewhere adjacent. With flyers, and this gets at some of the strategic mobility things, which I think we're going to talk about next, is you have no idea where the fuck they're going to go. Like, what are you going to do? Patrol every single one of your provinces and try to catch them? And it's so much worse than dealing with normal raiders, where you just have to put an army where they're going, and if you guess where they're going with your army, then you get to meet them. Here you actually have to be in that province patrolling. Which, how are you going to do that? Because if they have a scout, they're going to figure out where you're going to go, or they're going to know where your stuff is, and they're only going to send their stuff where you have a scout. Very hard to deal with. But again, you don't want to use this in a war where you're looking to eat somebody, because you're going to inherit all that beat up land. Yeah. So anyway, let's talk about strategic mobility. I'm going to pull up, let's pull up an old game, because I don't think talking about a current game would be terribly interesting. We'll pull up East of Eden, because I know that's going on. 42. We actually have flyers in this. So if we're looking, let's talk about strategic mobility. Let's imagine, what should we imagine? Okay, let's imagine that this guy right here is carrying like 200 birds. Okay, he's carrying a big Caelum army. We've got like 10 mages. The mages are all scripted to drop air elementals and then do advance and cast spells with lightning. And it's just generally, scary. It's a scary little stack of Caelum stuff. Now, let's say I'm fighting... Let's say all these forts here are Pangea's. Let's assume this one's Pangea's too. And Pangea's got his capital down here, and he's got another fort here. We get to move this army around. Let's say jump on top of this fort. And we'll one-turn pop it, because flyers are exceptional at breaking through forts. He has a bunch of mages inside, which he doesn't want me to kill. And which I do want to kill. I then get to decide... Now, Pangea's stealthy, so I won't necessarily know where his troops are. But I might, because he might use them to attack somewhere. Or bring them out of stealth. So, I have the option when I'm on top of his fort. Do I want to jump in, or do I want to go somewhere else? And I can go wherever I want. I can come down here, which is not a fort. I can jump on another fort. I can jump on wherever. And I don't ever have to take a fight. And it's going to be very hard for him to guess where I'm going to go. And if I'm running into, like... If I'm not fighting his main army, if I know where his main army is, I can always go someplace where his main army isn't, if I don't want to fight. If I do, then I can go ahead and take that fight. But yeah, we can jump around, and we basically we don't ever take a fight on a fort until his main army is out of position and can't get to us. And then he's in he's in deep shit trouble, and he just loses a fort, and there's almost nothing he can do. We're going to kill all the mages inside. Sorry. When you're in this situation, the only way you're ever going to appreciate this is by playing against it, to be fair. And you have to have this desperate fear that, oh my God, a bird army, which is not even ultra high commitment, it's like a few air elemental summoners and, 200 birds are going to jump on top of my fort, one turn pop it and kill all my mages inside, and I'm not going to be able to do anything about it unless I have an army near there or I'm patrolling. And that puts you in some really weird situations. You start having to make decisions like, okay, I can't have all my mages research. Instead, this random fort that's not even on the border of it's not even like on a province border like this one, doesn't have not any birds near it exactly. There might be a bird army up here. Well, I'm going to have all the mages on a patrol, and we're going to have to summon elementals or swarm spam or whatever it is, along with a PD dump, so that if by chance the birds happen to come here, we're going to fight and win on top of our fort. Because that's kind of all you can do. But now, look at how much you have, 6 mages and an army, which are going to force all these other players which are going to force the players to do all these other moves. It's very, very painful. You have similar kinds of issues with stealth rating. So anyway, that's kind of a common thing birds and elves have. But it is so painful to have to do that, to not be able to research with your mages, and to instead have to basically patrol everywhere. Very painful. Yeah, so basically that's the big thing with strategic mobility, is you force your opponent to patrol forts with mages and waste mage turns, and you oftentimes do not really have to take a fight until you're ready for it, and by ready for it, I mean your opponent's completely out of position. The ways you can kind of fight that as a bird, against birds and also against elves, is by running at them, right? But running at them and taking their infrastructure, and then they have to respond to you. The problem doing that against Caelum is, unlike elves do not siege well. Birds siege exceptionally well. They will generally, like a medium bird army, will one turn pop almost all the forts. The problem with that is, oh shit, we're running at him, trying to take his infrastructure, but we're A, slower moving to get to his infrastructure, B, his infrastructure is going to take us like 4 turns to siege through, and he'll have taken 2 of our forts by then. And the other thing is, birds excel in strategic mobility with their mages. So you're running at them, you're going to do an all-in at his capital, and I'm busy sieging down, taking your forts, and ignoring that. The second he moves on my capital, I can literally move every mage I have to defend my capital. And now you have to fight a PD dump on my cap with some small army plus all my mages. Good luck. Good luck. So the strength of the birds is their mobility on the map, their ability to pop forts where you don't want them to, which forces the enemy opponent into making all sorts of horrible decisions. And in conjunction with that, excellent ability to concentrate force, especially on the defensive, if you need to pull in all your mages. A lot of other times, like if I want to pull my mages in from this fort and this fort and this fort, it's like a slow process. I have to walk them in because they're little stupid human mages. If you're playing with birds, you just fly them in for 1 turn and bring them back. Or you fly them in and you let them stay here and research, and if they're needed, you don't have to prepare and bring them back ahead of time. They just fly over when they're needed. It's a big deal. It's a really big deal. So let's go ahead and pull back up the national overview. So we've talked about these guys with stealth rating, which actually is pretty good. These dudes, the area seraphs, these are kind of your workhorse mage. They're probably the mage, in my opinion, you should be getting most of. The reason, of course, is all of these guys with 2 air gems can summon an air elemental, and with 1 air gem, if you're in a storm, they can summon an air elemental. And then in a storm, they can also do summon storm power, and then they can do thunderstrike. They're just a very good mage. I think if you put some water gear on them, they can do freezing mists and stuff too. They're a good mage. They can also buff with quickness, which is kind of, I think it's worth considering. There's probably certain types of units, like maybe your elephants, you would want to get quickness on. Or, it's not hard to think of units you would want to have quickness on, even if it's not your elephants. Next up, we have the Harab Seraphs. And these are excellent mages. They don't look super good, but they are. You have a few randoms: air, earth, and death. The earth randoms are interesting just for being, like an earth mage. We don't have many earth mages, if you remember, just our Eagle Kings aside from these guys. So throw on some earth boots, summon earth power. You can now do Strength of Giants. I would say in the mid game, you need a few of these. It's basically required. Because you guys aren't going to punch hard enough. It's one of the things, Caelum dudes don't really punch that hard. Upgrading with Strength of Giants is going to make a big friggin' difference. Especially once protection buffs come out. Like, mass protection really hurts Caelum. Army of Gold, forget about it. By the time Army of Gold comes out, if you want your units to do anything in combat, you have to do Weapons of Sharpness on them. They just do not hit hard at all. They'll be basically... they're like sock puppets when Army of Gold comes up. Okay, so the Earth randoms, you can put Earth Boots on them. They can do Strength of Giants. You can also do it without Earth Boots, but you need gems. You need a gem for Earth Power, and then you need a gem for each time you want to cast Strength of Giants. Notice I haven't said Legions of Steel. The birds are going to kill things. You need to have a numbers advantage. Strength of Legions of Steel doesn't really matter that much for that. You might have a little bit less attrition, but it's not really why we're doing it. We're doing it so we don't get cheesed by stuff with decent protection. The important randoms, of course, are the death randoms. The death randoms are going to be the ones that are going to be doing Wailing Winds and Wind of Death. Those are phenomenally good spells. There are also things Caelum is going to want to go deep into Evocation, and those are things that you're going to get along the way going into Evocation. So it makes a ton of sense to have a fair number of these. The death ones can also do Skelly Spam, which is fine. And the air ones are nice, right? They're going to jump in and be basically the same thing as these dudes. They're just a little bit cheaper. So these are all really good. The earth ones will end up being more like lab rats for you. They'll do some forging jobs. And then as you have earth boots and stuff, you should bring them with. Getting your first earth boot, by the way, is also a bit of a trick because you don't have earth 2s. So you either have to trade for it or you have to take paths on your god. Or empower. Empowering may be the best way. Get an Eagle King to be Earth 2. They can random it, but I wouldn't ever count on that. Next up is we have the Arya Seraphim. They're sacred and stealthy. Or holy and stealthy. They're holy 2 and stealthy. So they can do preaching for Dominion control. Yeah, they're kind of good for that. The fire random is nice to just have. Fire 1, by the way, you can do fire elementals with. Big ones. You do 1 gem for fire or Phoenix power, and then you do 2 gems for each fire elemental you want to make. So you can easily... These guys can make 2 fire elementals, which, people are not going to be expecting that raiding into Caelum, and these guys can make really good counter raiders just because of that. They're obviously not great, but I think it's nice just to have it. You can site search fire with these guys. It's another important thing. So yeah, pretty good. And then you have these guys who are just super cheap. They're very good researchers in Magic 3. I don't personally like them. I would rather get guys who are going to be more useful in combat, like these guys. Rather than, there's things they can do, like in Storm. They can do some in Storm Power, and then they'll be Air 2. And then they can do, like, Lightning Bolt and stuff and Orb Lightning later. But, I'd rather have the big boys. But what do I know? Maybe this is the best way to research rush with these guys. Thing is, these guys are actually going to research more early. The difference is these guys are going to let you have more gold to put up more forts. So it's a bit of a trade-off. There's no right answers in this, but I don't know. It's up to you. I think getting these guys is a little greedy. And I tend to not like doing greedy things, because if I get rushed, I don't want to die. Now for the troops, we have a lot of different types of birds, guys. We have a lot of birds. I will start first. We're not going to go through all of them, okay? There's a few things we need to talk about. The first thing we need to talk about is the Spirehorn Warrior, which is this guy. This is the most common Caelum unit, all right? Spirehorn Warrior. Why is he important? Well, he's got a 13 damage magic lance, so it's going to get a charge bonus on the first hit. Decent attack score. He has some shock resistance, he has some cold resistance, and he has storm immunity. And the storm immunities are really important because you want to fly, and we're going to be putting up storm almost every fight because we want that storm power, and we may want to be casting Wrathful Skies. The shock immunity, or the shock resistance is nice because with Ground Army or Thunderfend, these guys will jump up to shock resistance of 10. And the lightning bolts you get hit with are 15 as part of Wrathful Skies. So these guys will survive a couple hits from Wrathful Skies. And if you combine it now with some regen, like if you have mass regen, these guys are kind of, with Thunderfin and mass regen, they can kind of suffer through Wrathful Skies being up. You throw in Will of Fates, forget about it. You're not going to be losing these guys really to Wrathful Skies. We do have guys who have more shock resistance. Not these guys, not the Iceclad. The Blizzard, the Tempest dudes. Where are you? Where are you? I know you're here. Tempest Warriors. Yeah, these guys have 8. They're basically like the other dudes, except they have better stats. 1 more attack, same damage. I think they have a little better defense. They might have more gear too. Let's look at the Spirehorn. Yeah, these guys don't have a hat. And they have a leather hauberk on. The defense stats the same. I don't know if these guys get more. Yeah, they have 1 more HP, 3 more shock resistance. By the time you're looking to do, here's the thing, they're going to take a lot more resources though, so you can't mass them as quickly. So for expansion and stuff, I don't think you would want to use these guys. The reason you use them, in my opinion, is basically for Wrathful Skies. Like if you're at the point in the game where it's time to be putting up Wrathful Skies all the time, and you're going to be doing Thunderfend especially, or even, I mean, if you're not doing Thunderfend, it's even more important. Like you get hit by a 15 strength lightning bolt, these guys are going to take 7 damage. The other guys would take 10. These guys, I mean, I guess they still both kind of die in 2 hits, so it doesn't matter a ton. After you have Thunderfend up, these guys are only going to be, well, they're going to have 13 shock resistance. So they're only going to be taking 2 damage. So it's really going to be almost, there's DRN and stuff too, but it's basically going to be chip damage coming in from Wrathful Skies. So these guys with Thunderfend are absolute units with Wrathful Skies up. So honestly, there's all these units. You don't really need to know about all of them. Okay, the ones you need to know about are Spirehorn Warriors, right? These you can mass out. You get them out so quickly. A lot of times you'll use these for expansion. You don't have to. We'll talk about the Raptorians and Tempest Warriors. These are, in my opinion, the bee's knees. They also, having a little bit of cold resistance is super nice too. Spirehorn Warriors still have cold resistance. That means they can do some stuff against Niflheim, which is going to be in every single EA game. We have a few different flavors. We'll talk about the Raptorian stuff. So, where's our Raptorian Warriors? Okay, Raptorian Warriors. These guys hit a little bit harder. They have a little bit better protection. They don't have like the charge bonus and stuff. I haven't, I'll be honest guys, I haven't really tested this. I don't know how much better or worse they do in expansion than Spirehorn. So if you're playing Caelum, test it out, see which one does better. Or if you know, put in the comments, because people will have played it more than me. I don't know if I've played Caelum in a multiplayer game. I've played against them a ton of times. And I've taken in the draft game we did a while ago that you saw up on the channel. I took an Eagle King in one of those draft games and did not regret it for a second. Excuse me. So yeah, that is the Raptorian Warrior. They don't have any of the other cool buffs though, so they can't fly in storms. They don't have shock or cold resistance. But they may be a little bit better for expansion and maybe a little bit better for raiding. But for being part of your armies where you're going to have fog warriors up, you might have, you know, a bunch of other things. I would generally encourage having the guys who can fly in storms. We also have archers. We have these guys who have short bows. They can also fly in storms. I think the storm immunity makes it not affect the precision of the bows and storms, but I think the arrows still get swept up by the storm a fair amount. I think if you have a magic weapon, oh god, I'm gonna be talking misinformation. I think if you have a magic weapon, I think it is not affected by the storm. Like, I think this guy actually gets to shoot like normal in storms. I think the storm, this part protects against any kind of precision malice. And then I think magic bows shoot through storms, but I could be wrong. They'll still be affected by stuff by like Arrowfend. But anyway, you know, you can imagine situations where you'd want to have Blizzard Warriors. They're kind of expensive. But being able to do freeze damage could be nice. You know, you have a fire mage, so you could get flaming arrows on them. And Wind Guide, of course, is trivial. Where's our fire mage? Right? Now, flaming arrows, you need to be fire 3 to cast it. So you basically have to be fire 2 to start with. So you either have to empower one of these guys or get a fire booster, like one of the Skulls of Fire. Hard to do. But you only probably need one, because if you have archers, you're probably only going to have one squad, and you can just have one guy run around and do flaming arrows. And that will be an interesting thing, because people don't think they need to have that ready for dealing with Caelum. So it's kind of just like a little thing you could do. And if you're going to have flaming arrows, do you really want frostbows? Well, I don't know. It probably depends on whether you're putting storm up. If I'm right about this, it's possible that I'm wrong. But anyway, you're a nation that kind of sort of has the option to do flaming arrows, and bringing in like 200 archers when people aren't necessarily prepared for it, because that's right, you can fly them in. That's a thing that people are probably not going to be expecting. And if people aren't expecting it, they're probably not going to have Arrowfend up, and then you'll probably tear right on into them. And of course, it's trivial for you to do Arrowfend once you have it researched, because you have super high air magic everywhere. Okay, what else are we going to talk about? These guys are sacred. They have cold protection. So in cold 3, they're actually going to be pretty high protection. In cold 3, they're going to be 19 protection, which is pretty good, and they hit pretty hard with a magic weapon. And they have a good shield. They're kind of solid. The problem is they just don't fit in with your nation. Like, your nation's all about movement and being fast, and these guys are like super slow. So you could maybe have these guys to guard, but like even guarding, like even the way this nation plays defense is very dynamic. I would say like actual good uses for these guys are like sitting in the gates of your forts. Right? So if you're going to get your fort's getting stormed, you have these guys run for it and just clog up the gate. That is probably the best use for these guys, and they would be really good at that. And honestly, you don't really need much of a bless for them to do that well. So that's probably the best use for them in my book, because you don't want many of them, but having like 8 or 10, having like 10 of them in a province just to clog a gate up is probably not the worst idea. If you do that, don't do them hold an attack, just have them run right forward. Elephants. All right, time we talk about elephants. Let me pull back up the test game. We'll do this one. Okay, so elephants. And wait, let's get we'll get one of you guys. Now let's get another one, and I want to forge a water bracelet for one of you. All right. I have no idea if this is going to work, guys. It probably won't. I'm going to put these guys in a line formation. Flyers in a line formation are going to attack On attack closest. I don't think they're going to fly. Line formation and attack, they're not going to fly. What I want to do here, we'll take just 2 elephants. Now, the way to do this, though, is we have to have... Gift of Flight is very janky, okay? Is the most janky of all spells. So what we're going to do is we're going to do Gift of Flight. Hopefully we'll land on the elephants, and if not, well, sue me. And then Gift of Flight. The quickness should land on the elephants. Okay, just like so. Will this work, guys? I have no idea. We'll find out. Oh, I guess my guys are flying, so it won't target flyers. Okay, they are flying elephants. That's actually something I didn't think of. Normally, Gift of Flight you can't target. And for whatever reason, it just has the worst targeting, which is a bug. It should be fixed. But it will not target flyers, apparently. So with Caelum, we actually are able to do this. Whereas other nations have a lot of trouble casting Gift of Flight on elephants. And I believe we have quickened them. They have been quickened. All right. One thing that I'm trying not to do as much when I do the guides is it's easy to just talk about the units and like go through and chitter chatter about them. I think it's a cooler thing. It's actually more how like I prepare for a nation when I'm going to play them in a game is you need like a big bag of tricks. All right. And this is one of the bags of tricks. And Matt, this could just be PD. And I move in 2 elephants with 2 of these guys. And I also, by the way, could script them to do air elementals on the final script, which I probably would in a real game. And now you're going to have flying air elementals and flying elephants. Okay, and let's see how we do. Oh, this guy get paralyzed? What a goddamn buzzkill. Oh, he's paralyzed for the rest of the combat. Oh, they paralyzed the other one. No fucking fun. No fun. Still, in the short time they were there, they killed 9 dudes. Anyway, you can see it's a good thing. Elephants, though, don't have great MR, as you can see. So, yeah, they get zapped by paralyzed pretty hard, with a big HP pool and all that. So that's elephants. You can do fun stuff with them. You can expand with them, too. They have decent protection. They have snow move. Very good unit. They're expensive as hell, though. But are they expensive when they have... quickness on them and Gift of Flight? They're not that expensive then. You can maybe even, with a few Earth Gems on one of these guys, you could do Iron Warriors on them too, and then they get really scary looking. But yeah, bad MR, I don't know. It's more like a gimmick you're going to do. I don't think you're going to... I would not really count on this as part of a big army. Though, I mean, you could have a couple of them in there, but I don't think it's going to win you the game. There's just too many ways to counter elephants. But they're good for expansion and that sort of thing. Guys, we have a bunch of the Caelum spells. Let's take a look at them all. There's a bunch of astral ones. To cast these, I think most all of these are pretty good in one way or another. I'll pull up the mod. I think if we do that, it's going to be another 20 minutes. I think almost all these are good. You don't have Astral with Caelum. Getting Astral is something you should think about. The problem with getting Astral is a lot of times you would get it for like magic weapons, which you don't need on your god. You might kind of need some MR, but this is definitely a hole in the nation is having Astral. And you have a lot of good summons which require it, so it's something to think about. You also have a lot of Deathfire stuff, and you don't get Deathfire as part of the nation. So basically the thing with Caelum is there's a bunch of things... basically Deathfire and Astral, that you don't really get as part of the nation. Well, actually, I'm going to pull up the mod inspector. I said I wasn't. All right, we're back. I've got the mod inspector pulled up. So the spells we get. We get these guys who are Water 2, which is kind of cool. We get a bunch of different Yuzads. And the Yezads, I don't think are going to break us into Deathfire, which is one of the things I'm checking for. But these are all real nice. They give you a bunch of cool astral magic or like different magic paths you wouldn't normally get. They're really good. You just have to have a fair amount of astral, which, by the way, if you stumble into indies, you know, there's a decent chance if you get like any of the astral thrones, you'll be able to cast this. And any of the astral indies will be able to do arcane probing, so you can get a decent pearl income. These guys are kind of cool. They're Air 3, Astral 2, Holy 3, so they can claim thrones for you. And these guys are good too, but I don't think there's the Deathfire one. Yeah, there's not. So it doesn't appear there's any shortcut to going to getting Deathfire on your god. I don't know if any of these Yadas. Yeah, you might be able to get Deathfire, and then if you get this guy, yeah, basically this guy could break you into all the astral stuff if you just go Deathfire. And then, you know, honestly, you could only go Death and then just Empower and Fire. And then if you have Deathfire on one guy, you can do the skull, and then he could get you this. And then there's like a path to get all the astral stuff, right? So you either have Death on your god, or you have a Death 2 guy. Yeah, no, you could actually do it. Okay, so you have your Death 2 randoms. You Empower one in Fire, right? So now they can do the Skull of Fire. They can now cast this spell. You drop all your Death gems on this until you get this guy, who's an Astral 3. You put a Starshine Skull Cap on him, and then he can do this stuff. The only one he's not going to be able to do is this, which, if you get a Crystal Coin, he could do. So there's a way to do it without boosters, but it's complicated. You have to spend a lot of gems on it. It would be slow. We could go through, I could look at all the different ways you could use all these paths. The thing is, it could be really important. It could be super important, but there's a ton of different paths, and going through and brainstorming all the different ways you could use each of these things, like, okay, here's how we could use the fire, here's how we could use the air, here's how we could use the earth. Guys, there's going to be a ton of ways to use all these, and we're not a nation with super great magic diversity, but ain't nobody got time for that, all right? Ain't nobody got time for that. So I think how we're going to close this out is I'm going to pull back up Dominions, and we're going to look at the Pretenders. All right. And yeah, we're about to look at Pretenders. I forgot, I need to actually mention that this video was sponsored by Vinisar. Okay, let me say it right. By Vincinar. Hope I'm saying it right. Yeah, he wanted me to do a video on early and middle-age Caelum, and I told him I would do early first, since I like early a lot. Early-age Caelum is the shit. Anyway, let's take a look at some of these. I have no idea. Okay, this is the one I was using in that test game, right? I like this a lot. We have really good scales. The thing you have to think about, though, is when people are going to want to run at Caelum, a lot of times before they have air elementals out. I've done that before. Sadly, I was not in time. The air elementals got out first, and then I ended up losing that game. But if you go something like this, you're basically saying, I'm going to have all the tools I need to deal with all the problems I'm going to have early. And I think Caelum can, but it's a little iffy. It's like on the edge. But this is kind of cool. What are the cool things about this? Well, it's going to break you into blood. It's going to let you have high earth. You can potentially control some earth globals. You can site search earth. And this reinvigoration is going to be dope on lots of your mages. Yeah, you basically can get +4 reinvigoration, which can be super nice. It's also going to let you make bloodstones, which is going to fix one of the major issues your nation has, which is you don't hit that hard, right? So it's going to open up stuff like doing weapons of sharpness and stuff in the late game. Really important in my opinion. That said, if you're blood hunting, you're probably going to have to blood hunt your cap, which kind of sucks, but it's not the end of the world. Yeah, I think something like this is totally an option. What else could we do? I have no idea why I would have made that. Maybe that was somebody else's god. You can do this would be like full scales. The difference between this and our previous build is we have full order turmoil and we have reinvigoration 3. And also it's going to be goddamn impossible to kill. But I don't know. It would matter how much faster you can expand with this. This will affect expansion. You will be able to expand a bit faster. I'm not sure how much though. Yeah. What else do we have here? We have this guy. This gives us some astral so we can do some of our summons. Farcaster can be nice for dropping Thunderstrikes literally across the entire board. I think Thunderstrike is pretty long range anyway. This probably is a little bit of a waste. I'd probably just go more magic resistance, maybe a little bit lower astral. But with this, you can do a crystal coin, and then you can do Ring of Sorcery. You're not going to be able to do a Ring of Wizardry with this, though. So it'll help with some of your path boosting problems. These are all super immobile, though. But you can tell the thing we're really liking is Reinvigoration. Reinvigoration. I think this one will be... Oh, yeah. This actually... I've titled this god Anti-Greed. We've taken Turmoil here, which I don't know if the balance is right. We'd have to test it for expansion. I really just don't know how much you need relative to each other, these two. But we've taken Misfortune. We've still got High Magic, so we can research fast. And we've got Growth and Cold. All right, we don't have bad scales. But we have a bit of Reinvigoration. We have Farcaster. And this guy's an Inspiring Researcher, and he's an Adept Researcher, and he's going to be Awake. You are not going to be able to fight Caelum before Air Elementals come out with this. Right? So you're going to have big fucking Air Elementals really super soon, which means you can win your first war super easily. By the way, these are really good paths for us. It's going to break us into all the astral stuff. We're going to have good earth access. Later, maybe we can find a way to empower on blood, and we can make bloodstones. So, yeah, this guy in a blitz or something might be good to have. You know, you can also potentially... Well, you've got Eagle King thugs, so you're never really going to thug with him. But basically, this guy's going to just turbocharge your research. And what is that going to mean, right? I said it would mean Air Elementals, which means it's very hard to kill a Caelum that has a big Air Gem bank and Air Elementals. The other thing it could mean is it could mean very early Eagle King thugs, like very early Eagle King thugs. All right, like expansion Eagle King thugs, right? Because you don't need much. You need probably Stone Skin and Mist Form and Shockwave. So you need like Alt 3 Air or Evocation 2, I think. So anyway, that could be like the end of expansion or expanding into your neighbor. So you could have some pretty sick Eagle King thugs coming out with this guy, and maybe not or a bunch of Air Elementals. The other thing I didn't really mention about Eagle King thugs, which it's probably worth mentioning now, is because they have Quicken Self. You know, I talked about the Shockwave thug, like that's how you have to use them. That is not the only way you have to use them. You can use them as anti-thugs, right? So you can put 2 weapons on them, give them Quicken Self, give them an attack booster, have them behind PD. They buff up, the thug runs in, and the Eagle King just murders them. Mirror Image, also very good. Like Quicken Self, Mirror Image are very, very good and anti-thug. And I would suggest putting a Twist Fate Amulet on there too. So anyway, that's Anti-Greed, Devirginizing Fountain. This gives you some of your path access with the Death. I don't really know about that. Yeah, I don't know about any of those. So I don't know. If I were playing them, I would probably go with something like this. The other thing to consider, or something like this. The other thing to consider, which I don't have a build for, is potential. I don't think they need a monster. They expand pretty good. And be careful, don't get any cold-blooded monsters. But, I mean, you could get one. What would I get? Maybe this guy would be good because he has the right paths, but he has Pop Kill, which kind of sucks. But that could be okay. This guy might be an option for Caelum, to be honest. And he's probably not terribly expensive. And he does have the right paths. So you could do this guy Awake, and then people really wouldn't want to mess with you, because this guy will mess up a lot of people running at you. There's not many people who are going to... Especially if you are going to have like stone skin. Well, I guess you already have 14 natural protection. I'm not sure exactly how you would optimize this guy. But anyway, and it will also help if you're running at people and you need somebody to defend, he'll be able to do it. Something like this is an option. The other option is getting like a dormant titan. The thing with that, though, is you have to ask yourself, how much better is a dormant titan going to be than an eagle king? And they could be a good bit better. I mean, obviously, they can obviously be a lot better. But a lot of times, eagle kings are going to cut it. And you probably wouldn't want to have the same paths as you have on an eagle king. So, like, maybe this lady here with 4 arm slots would be very, very hard to kill with the right kit. I mean, I think these are all... Oh, yeah, these kill demons. And she has the right path. So something like this dormant could also be a thing. And by right paths, I mean they give us a useful caster bless. And dormant, we would still be able to have pretty good scales. I think you probably want magic. You want this too. I don't know. Maybe something like this. This is not bad scales. You could totally win a game with this. And yeah, she's going to wake up and cause all sorts of trouble for somebody. There's a few other ones. I know people like this guy a lot. Air and Death is kind of good. We already had these paths, so the paths aren't super helpful for us. But it's a pretty badass chassis. It can magic phase, whereas this chassis cannot magic phase. This chassis is also really cool, the Nataraja. I've seen this used a few times in multiplayer games. Ton of arm slots. You can magic phase with Astral. We get Earth, which we liked. Fire, I'm not really sure about. Astral, I'm not really sure about. I don't know. I think if I were to do it, we already have magic phase options. It's when somebody's rolling like a meatball blob at you and you just have to run into it. You would probably use this lady. But, I mean, it's still good to be able to magic phase. So, I don't know. There's a bunch of options. I think the things to think about. What are the strengths? What are my closing thoughts on the nation? It is a nation which has unbelievable ability on the strategic map. Force concentrate to magic phase move. You can also do seeking arrows, something else I didn't mention. You can do on the strategic map. Force concentrate. Do crazy movements where you're popping enemies' forts and people are paranoid about you doing it. You can also bring a ton of mages to a fight on the defensive. Right, so just bring in a boatload of mages. A lot of your mages can magic phase. On the strategic map, you are a god. Like, you are a god of the strategic map. In combat, you have some issues, but a lot of those issues can be fixed by air elementals. And if air elementals don't fix it, you can fix it by more air elementals. If that doesn't fix it, you have a few other options. One of them is more air elementals. The other option is you can start looking at earth buffs like Strength of Giants. You can try to do some flaming arrows business, which is something you can do. It's a little janky. You also have many different ways to thug out Eagle Kings, right? You also have funny things you can do with mammoths, right? But again, that's mammoths are kind of just air elementals you pay for in gold. Especially if you have a small squad, if you're dealing with the really hardest things for Caelum to deal with, like pretty high protection dudes that, that has some shock resistance, you can get a squad of your heaviest hitting troops, which I think is going to be your Tempest Warriors that fly. Or are you Tempest Warriors? Yeah. You take some of these guys, you get Strength of Giants on them, they're now 17. Or is this two-handed? No. 17 damage. And then you get quickness cast on them because you've got a bunch of water dudes and they can all spam out quickness. So you have to give them a bracelet or a water gem. And a few of these guys with quickness and Strength of Giants will be able to do a pretty good bit more work than your normal birds. But thinking about how you don't die to the ways to cheese Caelum is an important part of playing Caelum, because there's lots of ways to cheese them. In tactical combat, that's kind of where they're not the gods, is where there's a few things that they just have a real hard time dealing with. all those things can be made to go away later. Like liches spamming drain life will deal with super combatants. You know, you get weapons of sharpness and stuff later. But it is the other thing that I think it needs to be said about it is Caelum, almost more than other nations, they can snowball out of control on the strategic map, right? They can win wars so goddamn quickly, right? Enemy has armies out of position. You teleport thugs on top of them. The armies are dead. Their provinces are yours. You're moving your big armies around super fast. So if you have a Caelum that's in like position 2, they can very, very quickly go to position 1. And they can just swing the game out of control so quickly. And so they're a nation that scales pretty well. They have pretty good mages. The Evil Kings are gods. I don't know. It's a really cool nation. I like them a lot. I'd like to play with them, but honestly, I'm holding out for Illwinter to come through and change it where if you're a flying commander and you script fly, and you script attack, you actually jump in forward. You don't inch forward. Or maybe, you know, even better is if there was an option where you get to pick. But I don't know. That's asking for more UI stuff. Because there's nothing fucking cooler than having an Evil King get buffed up like 4 of them in a big Caelum army, and then they jump into melee, and then they start shockwaving amongst the enemy army while they're basically immune to shit. Oh, it's so cool, guys. You have to see it. But you'd have to go back and play Dominions 4 for that. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the overview. I hope it gave you some ideas. Maybe inspired you to pick Caelum. And we'll see you next time. Cheers.